Steven, why is Vanessa so mean to me? Do you think she was mean to me? I think she was mean to me. Vanessa's a meanie. So mean. Goodbye.
Steven, do you think that Vanessa was mean to me?
It was tough love for sure.
She's wrong, by the way, about everything.
I mean, you're always right, right?
No, I'm not always right, but in certain situations, and I'm usually right. It's not always, but usually.
In your own head, yeah.
Well, no, I know what I'm talking about in situations, and I own it. I own the fact that I'm right a lot of the times because of experience. Vanessa, you know, I think she's just jealous of my hair, and, you know, she comes on. I get a text from Stu. Nobody knows who Stu is. He's the bowler who's always texting me. We should bring Stu on one day to call in because he likes to bust my balls. He's like, Vanessa, yeah, she got you today, didn't she? You know, he says it's just like trying to needle. I didn't think so. She was just having a conversation. She was wrong about it, but she was having a conversation. Anyway, so we've got a show today. This is RAWtalk episode number 123. Steven is back. He was busy getting stuff done, which we'll talk about when we get further on into this episode. I'm going to talk about, I bought an old typewriter. We're going to talk about some book binding and discussion with Kickstarter project, which is coming for book 2. Fuji has thinks people are camera curious. We got a lot to say. I got a lot to say about that. There's rumors of 3 new lenses and 3 new bodies coming from Canon, as well as rumors of an R6 Mark III specs. We also have potential specs that I don't think we talked about last week because it was just me about Sony A1 II rumors. So we've got a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to the Canon front, because there was so much. Oh, and they teased something, which they never do. We were not aware that a teaser was happening until 26 minutes before the teaser happened.
Lovely.
26 minutes. Thanks, guys. 26 minutes for 4. Here you go. This is an embargo until noon.
Didn't we just talk about the other week how we're probably done with new gear for the end of the year, and now these 3 lenses are coming out, all these rumored cameras? It's like, what's going on? Usually everything's done by now.
They're doing a dump, and I don't know if it has anything to do with sales or whatnot. They're just dumping shit at the end of the year. Everybody.
Traditionally, it's always been September was like the busy month of camera releases and lenses and everything. And now, I don't know, maybe it's pushed back this year.
Well, I guess, didn't the original A1 come in November?
January, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, January.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's weird. Also, I almost forgot to add that the Fronos Photo Bootcamp on Saturday, November 16th, 2024 here in Philly is, we've sold 10 so far, which means there's only 5 spots remaining as of right meow. It may be even less by the time you're listening to this, but if you wanted to lock in and get a spot at the next boot camp on November 16th, head on over to bit.ly/campfro16 to lock up your spot. And I hope to see you here in Philly for another sellout of the boot camp. That's it. Let's move on. Let's put Vanessa to rest. She'll never be on the show again because she's such a meanie. And, you know, we'll leave it at that. So I was going around this old, they do like an antique show fair thing. Basically, it's a bunch of shit. Bunch of people, the same traveling. The same traveling salespeople that go from show to show to show, and they do these block sales where they come to your neighborhood, and it was 4 long blocks. It's not the first time they've done it, and I've gotten some stuff there. I'm always looking for old cameras and things along those lines. Doorbell!
Uh-oh.
Hold
what
on.
Could it be? This might actually be something interesting to talk about.
Hey, Steven.
What'd you get?
We interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast of Frono's Photo RAWtalk where I was about to talk about getting gear around a antiques show, and the doorbell rang, and I have a box here from Canon. It's not open yet. I'm going to open it
new
live.
Lenses?
I'm going to open it live. Can you guys see this?
Great visual.
Can you hear that?
Move the camera a little bit. They can't see it.
Oh my God, this is taped shut. Hold on. I'm using a razor blade. Oh my God.
Careful.
We're gonna keep cutting. I did it. Let me close the razor blade.
ASMR.
Here we go. This is a big box. I mean, by big box, it's just like, okay, I'm pulling it out. I'm pulling it out, Steven.
Don't pull that out.
Don't laugh. Look at this, Steven. What does this say?
Wow. A production EOS R1.
R1 is in the hizzy. I got an R1. I don't know who else has one of these other than me. I'm so cool right now.
It is production, right? I mean, it's not a white box. It looks like an official R1 production unit.
Yeah, this looks like a full-on production. It has cards and everything. So let me see.
User manual?
Yeah, there's a user manual in here.
It's production.
This is limited warranty, USA and Canada only.
Is the play button upside down?
Well, let me check. Let me get the camera out of the
For those that don't
the
recall,
box.
in the preview video, Jared's pre-production R1 that was basically handmade, the play button was upside down. And a lot of other people's R1 emblems and logos were literally falling off during the trip. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time around.
Steven, they buried stuff in this box. It's like there's a hidden compartment underneath, different than before. I'm digging for the battery, and I finally found it.
Does it come with the giant charger? Should, right?
Hold on, let me dig into the box a little more. Hold on. It's like digging for gold. This box is so deep. Yeah, it's got the massive charger, which is kind of funny because Sony just came out with their double charger. Their double charger is the size of their single charger. It's actually pretty good that Sony's new double charger.
Keep in mind the R1 battery is also way bigger than the Sony batteries.
I think I'm gonna like the R1 more than when now that I love the R5 so much, but I really want the quality that I feel is slightly better on the R3, but very similar. I just think the R1 is going to be just clean as can be when it comes to high ISOs. All right, I'm turning it on, Steven. Nothing happened, Steven.
The battery
I think I have a dead
is probably
battery.
dead.
I think I have a dead battery. How is that even possible to have a dead battery? Like, it doesn't even have any charge. Well, let me go grab an R3 real quick and get that battery. Steven, play hold music, please.
Cue elevator music.
Okay, I'm back. Let's see if this battery works, and hopefully the camera isn't dead. Okay, turn on.
That would not be good.
It turned on. Whew. Woohoo! Thank goodness it's not dead. What are we looking for? We're looking for the firmware. Firmware, file name.
1.0.0.
This feels so nice in the hand, Steven. Firmware 1.0.0.
See, I thought you said you liked the R3 feeling better, though, because it was smaller.
I do.
The grip material is different now.
Yeah, but it feels good, but it just feels bottom heavy. Like it still doesn't feel as nice as an R3, but it still feels nice in the hands. It's a behemoth. It's a behemoth of a camera. But I don't know what changes they made, because remember there was rumors that they might be making changes to some of the stuff. I'm gonna have to go through and play with this thing a lot more, obviously. But what was I looking for? I wanted to pre-shoot, see if they changed that. Pre-enabled. Yeah, it's just either enabled. No, I don't know. I'm gonna have to see what's changed. I'm gonna have to play with this after the show.
I highly doubt they changed anything. They might have tweaked things internally, but in terms of menu items and stuff like that, I really doubt they did that.
Hey, can I end the show right now and go shoot, Steven? I mean, it feels nice in terms of grip. It feels like, I mean, it's a substantial camera. It doesn't have the eyepiece on it, so I have to find that in the box to put the eyepiece on it, because this time around, the eyepiece is going to lock in, unlike where the old Canons didn't actually lock in. So they would fall off in your bag, or people would lose them all the time.
They didn't click? Huh.
No, they didn't click in. I got to put this away, Steven, because if not, I'm just going to keep playing with it. I'm going to keep diddling it.
You love playing with it.
I do love playing with it. Do you?
Do you
love playing with
yourself?
It? Yeah. Anyway, so the R1 just arrived in the mail. I don't know how many other people are going to have this. I better charge it up. I'm going to also write on this battery so I know the date. I like putting dates on the batteries so I know which batteries are older. Because I bought a couple batteries to go to Kenya with last year, and those have the November date on it. 11/23 is what I put on those. So this one I'll put, what is today? It's 10/24. So
You can always check in the camera too to see which one is the worst battery.
Yeah, there's that. But I like just to know. Just visually, I can see it without having to look.
Sure.
So anyway, R1 is here. You guys don't have it. I do. Vanessa doesn't have it. I'm special.
Actually, Vanessa might have it.
Hold on. We're calling Vanessa. I know you hate this.
Oh my God.
We're calling Vanessa.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available.
Screw you,
At the
Vanessa.
tone, please record your message.
I'm going to leave a message.
When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Hey, Vanessa, I'm on the podcast right now, and you are currently not available. But guess what I have in my hands? Not that, an R1. I got an R1 in my hands. You don't. If you do, text me back during the show in the next 35, 40 minutes, and I will let people know that you do. But anyway, I'm cooler than you. Bye. All right. Let's get back to the sale of antiques that are not antiques. That it's literally just a junk.
This was just
sale.
a giant yard
Flea market.
sale? Okay.
Yeah, flea market.
Yeah.
I forgot the word is flea market. So basically, people come around and they
Have their little tables set up, all their junk.
They do. So there's usually not very much. And there's some places that have cameras. The guy's like, that's $85. I'm like, yeah, it's about $3. Like, go away. And so I just realized walking around these places, I'm like, I don't want to buy any of this shit. Like, I don't need this. What am I going to do? Now,
I mean, the only good thing would be like for set design. I do like when you get antiques and stuff like that, or old, maybe broken cameras that we can throw on a set. That's always nice to have. But yeah, that's about it.
I mean, I bought a projector, a 16 millimeter projector for like $15. That's cool looking. That's a good set piece. But I also noticed there was this old typewriter, and it was clean as could be. And it was an Underwood, and I didn't buy it. And then I went back at the end of the day, right when they were already packed up. I'm like, do you still have that typewriter? And they're like, I have it right here. And I was like, you want to sell it now? Because she was like, I have $65 on it. And I'm like, well, will you take 50? She's like, no. So anyway, I gave her 60. I gave her 60. Shut up, Steven. I gave her $60. I am not even a major haggler. It's like over $5. I'm not like one of these people who's out these things and they're like
$20.
No, they're like $8.
Yeah.
They're like $8. The person's like 11. They're like, well, how about 9? How about 9 1/4? I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? I own 5 properties, soon to be 6 when I buy a church. Do you think I need to be haggling over 3/4?
So douchey.
No, I said it just for you, Steven. Actually, I said it for Stu, because Stu always makes fun of me for everything. My friends make fun of me. That's what they do.
It's too easy. What?
Yeah, too easy. Great. So anyway, I buy this thing for $60, and I buy it because it's clean.
I will say you showed me it yesterday, and you had your old Remington next to it, which you got refurbished, a few years ago. And I didn't realize that the Remington, the keys, I thought they were painted yellow. They were just basically stained yellow from being so old, 100 plus years old. And this new one you got, well, not new one, but new in your hands, is pure white. Like the keys look brand new. It's crazy that it's 100 years old and it still looks to be in pristine condition.
Yeah, because it was kept in its original case basically forever.
Yeah.
And so I took it over to Philly Typewriter just to get an idea, because I sent him a picture. I'm like, look, I bought this. It was $60. It was just so clean that I had to. And I liked it because it was a small portable Underwood, something that a writer would have taken to a baseball game back in the day. And he's like, oh, that's a good find. He's like, bring it in. So I brought it in, and he's like, you could flip it for $120, double your money. Or if you did fix it up, it would be about a $1,300 typewriter. But it's probably going to cost me $600 to fix it. Man. But I might do it. I might trade them. I'm going to go over there today and do some shooting.
And when you say portable, it's still, a briefcase size for the most part typewriter, but it's so much lighter than something like your Remington, which I don't know, how much does that thing weigh? 50 plus pounds?
It's heavy because there's so many mechanical parts. It's just insane.
You couldn't simply bring that around back in the day.
I bought it for $60 because it just was clean. It's from 1925. It's a Remington portable, and it's kind of cool. I'll post a picture. Sorry, Underwood portable. I'll post a picture of it, and I'll decide what to do. But it was just a cool thing. And other than that, there was really nothing else there. I keep going by these things, and I'm like, I don't want to buy anything. What do I need junk for? I don't want to be like these people collecting just so much junk.
Is it time to write another love letter to Nikon with a new typewriter?
Dear Nikon.
Dear Nikon.
You are in trouble. I used to love you, but I no longer love you anymore.
That is still one of my favorite videos, though. Literally writing a love letter to Nikon.
Yeah.
Leaving
It was
Nikon.
a good video.
We had a great 27 years together.
But I'm sad to see that we have to go because you have not kept up with the times. Hey, Ken, I gotta go to $5.
At that time, I think you were switching to Sony, right?
Yeah, I did my 2-year stint, year and a half stint with
Sony.
Sony.
Yeah, a little rebound, and then you move on to Canon.
Yeah, well, when that A1 autofocus was shit, not as good as an R3, I was like, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Okay, so let's move on from there onto the book binding discussion.
Yes.
Stephen, what were you doing last week that you needed to get done during the show time?
Well, I needed to move forward with the Kickstarter video to really figure out what the hell I needed to film for it, get all the B-roll sorted out that we already did film for it, make a list for our graphic designer of all the renderings we need, basically everything that's needed for the final Kickstarter promotional video. The hardest part is that we're making a promotional video about a product that does not exist yet, that we don't physically even have like a final book or a pre-production book or something like that. I literally just have a blank sample book with 0 renderings until yesterday of what the book would look like inside. So that's the tough part, is we're trying to sell something that doesn't really exist yet. But I think we finally have all the ingredients to bake this cake and make a nice promotional video for it.
The book binding, well, for those who, you've been listening, so you know that a book is being called Book 2, the number 2. So the binding discussion, and if anybody that had the Bernie book knows that there's a couple of pages in that book where you lose some stuff in the gutter. And I was not happy with losing stuff in the gutter because it didn't match the sample. But the explanation that I was given is that the sample was hand bound, whereas the final books are machine bound, which means they're more tight. And then over time, the more you read the book, the more it loosens. And I'm like, who's reading this book 73 times? No one. You're going to open it here and there, and you're buying it to support me, and you want a piece of just a really nice photo book. And that's what I'm aiming for again, is that people want to support what we're doing here, see these amazing images over the last 22 years. And it's it weighs 8 pounds now. So it's a little heavier this time.
It's going to be a big, hefty book for sure.
So yeah, it's gonna be a heavy book, but I had to choose the binding, and we're going with something called a Swiss binding, a Swiss bound book, which means that the spine of the book isn't glued to the inside of the paper, so it can fold flat and more open. But it does bring up the possibility for misalignments of pages, where before you hide misalignments in a gutter, but I don't want a gutter with a 292-page book. It would just be a really deep gutter, and I just hate when the lines don't line up, and when it's like a wavy look. I just don't like that in a book. So,
well, and like you said before in the Bernie book, you really did lose a couple of images because of that gutter. I mean, you almost chop off nearly an inch of the middle of the image. And if you're shooting your subject directly in the middle of the frame, you lose that entire photo. So this time around, hopefully the book will lay nearly flat with the Swiss binding, and you won't have that issue. Plus, you took that into consideration with the book design itself, and you kind of off-centered some of the images.
Yep.
So if the subject was in the center, they weren't lost in the gutter if you decide to go with that binding.
Exactly. That's the key. So I'm going with the Swiss binding. It's more expensive. It's an extra $1.60 per book to do Swiss binding.
I think it makes the most sense. I think the compromise is just maybe that misalignment on a page or two, if that even happens. That's just a possibility, but it's much better than losing the entire image in the gutter.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going with. Hopefully it doesn't bite me in the ass, but it's still going to be a beautiful book regardless. So let's put that to rest. But pay attention. I will be promoting pretty heavily the Kickstarter when it's time, so that we can fully fund it. Well, I want to beyond fund it so that we can just get them printed, get them here in the new year, and get them shipped out to you guys, because it's a solid. I mean, I really like the book. Now that there's also like 8,000 words in it, and we have to do the audiobook, there's a lot to get done for it, but it's going to be really good.
Do you know how much the Kickstarter goal is going to be just yet?
I mean, I set it to a reasonable amount. I mean, we did over 50-some thousand last year, but the way the Kickstarter works is that counts all the shipping, which is weird, but they count it as a total. I mean, my goal is to do like $80,000 to $100,000, but you just want to make sure that it gets kickstarted and you don't lose out on it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the Kickstarter is, I think, for you to really figure out how many books to order in bulk, right? The original run.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how many to order. I'm going to probably order 2,000 right now.
Okay.
Whereas I did $1,250 for the Bernie book and still have about 700, but I broke even, which is good. And this should sell more because it's not a political figure.
We were doing the B-roll yesterday, and I had all of your old passes, your old lanyards, your old all-access passes, all that stuff on the ground. And I couldn't believe how you kept the photo passes in perfect condition. I mean, they were unused, basically. You must have put them in some kind of sleeve. They're 20 plus years old, most of them.
I don't know what I did. I think I might have had a plastic sleeve on my lanyard that I might have. I had to. I must have had a plastic one around my neck because there a plastic one where you would slide it in. I think I did, Stephen. Something's coming back to my brain. That's the only way, because some of those have never been peeled.
Because there's no way they would have let you in the pit without it like attached to you in some way.
Yeah.
Whether that's on your hip in a sleeve of some sort, or actually stuck on you. Because I always put them on me, and I wish to this day that I did not, because most of those passes are destroyed, 20 plus years later at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm recalling that I must have hung it around my neck and had a sleeve, and they would slide into the sleeve if it fit. And that's why, like, the Coldplay one is perfect, and the Three Doors Down.
The Limp Bizkit one and Korn tour from like 2002 or 1, perfect condition.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That must have been what I did. So anyway, let's move on here. I get a notification from Fuji after they announce something, because I don't rank getting anything from Fuji still, and I don't really care at this point. But they come out with a new X-M5. It's the lightest X series camera, because X is going to give it to you. And the point that they're making is that this is a super light camera that weighs in at only 13 ounces. It measures in at 4.7 inches wide and 2.6 inches high and 1.5 inches thick. It's literally a glorified point and shoot designed for xennials. And I say that, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because these kids love point and shoots. There's a resurgence of point and shoots going on. But the thing that got me about this is that the quote from Fuji talks about this is a camera for people who are camera curious.
Oh,
camera curious. We know that the xennials are all types of curious, because they are beyond fluid. They're like water. They'll go whatever direction they need to go, no matter what. They don't care. Like, that's just the facts of the matter. But I think the term camera curious is stupid, especially when it's an $800 camera without a lens. You're going to be spending over $1,000 to get a kit set up just to see if you like photography and want something better than a cell phone. I just think it's kind of misguided. But again, Fuji has done a good job. What do you think about this stuff?
So it seems like Fuji wants this camera to be the gateway drug into the camera world for introductory users. They want this camera to be the first taste to people that have never really experienced, I guess, a real camera other than your cell phone. I mean, I don't mind the idea, but I do agree that $900, way too much for an introductory camera like this for people that are supposedly camera curious. There needs to be a camera that Fuji makes that is in that $400 or $500 price point, gives us the film simulations, and that's about it. I don't mind the EVF part, because this is, again, for people that are just using a camera for the first time. They're used to their phone, and it's probably easier for them to stick with just using the screen. But yeah, calling it camera curious is odd.
I get this idea that these kids, these xennials that they're designing for, they call it content creators. Everybody wants to create content. It's all, look at me, I'm so cool. The problem is there's no electronic viewfinder on this camera. And again, you're going to have people walking around that look like morons, holding the camera out in front of them, just taking snapshots. And I'm I'm very anti-snapshot, as you know, and I'm a big fan of having an electronic viewfinder. And I get it; some of these kids want better shots, better results than a cell phone. But I just think that this is a waste of money to be camera curious in this situation. I think if you're camera curious, you should look at something from Canon. You could even look at something from Nikon. You could look at something from Sony, something that has an EVF that you can grow with. There's really no growing with the X series. You can buy these crop sensor lenses, but there's not much growing beyond that. There's no pro in their right mind in the sports world or in the action world that is using Fuji. It just doesn't make sense. I just hate the term curious, right? Like, because that brings up, they had sober. I bring up sober curious, and the definition of sober curious is a lifestyle and cultural movement that encourages people to be more mindful about their alcohol consumption. The term was coined by Ruby Warrington in 2019 book Sober Curious, and has become popular, particularly among young people.
I don't think I've ever heard that term said out loud.
Here's what the movement encourages. Yeah, well, this is what it encourages. Consider how much, when, and why they drink. Question their drinking habits and whether they are enriching or complicating their life. Explore the health and wellness benefits of reducing or eliminating alcohol. Choose when and if to drink rather than doing so out of habit to meet social expectations. Some benefits of being sober curious include improved sleep, enhanced mental clarity, weight management, better digestive health, improved mood, enhanced physical fitness, reduced risk of, oh, really? There's a whole definition of, how about just not being fucking drunk all the time and being able to actually go do something and not living in a fog? I just am not a big fan of people like, it's dry January. It's like, well, and then you talk to people that are like, man, I can't wait till dry January's over because I'm going to get sloshed. I'm like, you just missed the whole point of the whole thing. It's supposed to show you that you feel better, and you should maybe consider either not drinking at all, which is easy for me to say.
See, that's the thing. It's easy for you to say, someone that literally does not drink at all. People have serious addictions to this kind of stuff, to alcohol.
Find a new addiction.
Alcoholism is a very serious, real thing, and it's not that simple for people to just stop.
Find a new addiction, Stephen.
It's that easy?
All right, moving on. Let's talk about some camera companies and things that actually matter. Like Canon, rumors has talked about there's 3 new lenses and 3 new bodies that are potentially coming, or body segments.
Well, segments is the big thing, yeah.
What were the 3? I get the 2.
They said 2 new full frame cameras, which would include 1 retro camera, which I assume would be similar to Nikon's like ZF. Hopefully it's full frame. And then 1 being a high megapixel camera that Canon rumors was saying could possibly be like 102 megapixel, crazy high megapixel body. I think that's way too high. And
get high. It sounds like James Blunt's song.
Blunty
McBluntface. Yeah.
I don't know if the lenses will even resolve that high. I assume it's going to be more like a Sony A7 IV type body, or maybe like their old 5DSR, where it's just a straight up like, here's a high resolution, high megapixel body that just takes great photos, and that's about it.
You know what I would like to see? I like to see from one of these companies, take 2 of your sensors and slap them together. Take 4 of your sensors, slap them together. Do what Fuji does. Go medium format. You want to go medium format, but it's too expensive. They just couldn't do it.
It's too much of a niche, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're also saying, by the way, the 3rd camera is going to be an APS-C camera, but it'll be more video focused, something like the FX30, like Sony has. That it's more like a cinema camera in a APS-C body, but we'll see.
Actually, I know exactly what it is, Stephen.
Oh,
can I say it?
Breaking news?
Yeah, I know what the APS-C camera is. It's a camera for Gen Z who is camera curious.
Oh.
It's going to be a small box with a flip out screen and no EVF, and they're going to be like, "Ooh, look at me! I'm a TikToker. I'm going to be so famous. I'm an influencer because I influence so many people."
I am surprised Canon would do something like that, because they usually don't focus on video-centric products in a small APS-C type body.
You know what would be smart? If they just brought back a power shot or an elf and they just were like, we're bringing back a retro Elf from 2000, but updated for $500. Like, you could make it $600. These Gen Zers will just charge it and then fuck their credit up because they're stupid, and then cry about it, and then want everybody else to pay for it because they're fucking buy now, pay later. Why do I hate Gen Zers so much, Steven?
Honestly, though, I do think bringing back like a retro point and shoot would be a very smart move these days. I mean, there's a lot of these Gen Zers that are literally bringing cameras around from when they were born and using them today.
They could probably just I wonder if they still have molds for these things.
Yeah, just
for like
resell the same camera,
Elves.
maybe with an updated sensor or something.
Yeah, update something. I mean, I guarantee you they would sell a shit ton of them to these people.
I think they actually would.
Anyway, so why did Canon go ahead and do a teaser? Like, when was the last time Canon teased anything?
Didn't they tease the R1? Yeah, they teased always the flagships. I think even the R5, R6 they teased. No?
I don't remember at this point, but I was not expecting a teaser for 3 new lenses coming.
It's not like Nikon, how they tease everything. There's always some kind of silhouetted camera body that they're teasing weeks in advance, or like their Z9 launch where they teased and showed a new spec from the camera each week until the launch.
So from the graphic that they put up there, you can see that there's a 24-105, then there's a shadow that looks just like a 24-105, then there's a 35-1.4, and then there's 2 shadows that are pretty similar to the 35-1.4. And I think if we had to guess, we've seen rumors of a 70-200 2.8 that is not external zooming, but internal zooming. So that is probably what this is based off of the rumors. And the other ones, what would make sense is a 50-1.4 and a 24-1.4. I mean, that's just common sense.
Canon Rumors has also already leaked the rendering images of the 24 and 50, so pretty sure that's what it's going to be. And I do recall when the 35-1.4 came out, Canon did specifically say this is going to be part of an upcoming full prime hybrid lineup, so we know they're going to be primes. Now, the 70-200 2.8, that is rumored to be a Z lens, just like that 24-105 2.8. So that'll have the aperture ring, the powered zoom, minimal focus breathing is my guess. It's probably going to be nearly parfocal because the 24-105 is kind of like that. Custom function buttons. My question is, will it be available in black and white? Because all the hybrid lenses are black, even the 24-105.
I want white, Steven.
I mean, that's always been the traditional internal 70-200 2.8 lens from Canon.
White power. What?
What was that?
What was it? Hey, David Duke, how did you get in here? But Clarence Bigsby? Clarence Bigsby, is that you? That's still the best.
But Canon Rumors is saying that it will be the 70-200, and they also are saying that it's confirmed to work with teleconverters. I don't really care for that, but I know the big issue with the current external zooming 70-200 2.8 RF lens, it does not work with teleconverters.
I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say if you put a teleconverter on a 70-200, you're an idiot. No, you are. You got to think. All you're gaining with a teleconverter is from the 200 to beyond. Anything from, if you're zoomed out to 200 and you want to and you get 300 with a 1.4, fine. But anytime you start pulling back, you are now devaluing your lens completely. Whereas you would be at 2.8 all the way from 70 to 200. Now, if you could pull it back to 70, you're at like 100 millimeters at f4 if you put a 1.4 converter on there. That is stupid.
I mean, I would assume anyone that bought a teleconverter and they're using it for a 70-200, they're using it at the long end because they need more reach and they're not pulling back, right?
They're probably pulling back because they always do. They get lazy.
Because I would kind of get if you bought a 2X and you make your 200 into a 400, but then at that point it's a 5.6 lens.
But then you're going to be like, oh, I might zoom here. But I just, you know my take on teleconverters, Steven. The question is, how much is it? What do you think it's going to be? How is it not going to be $3,000?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up because the 24-105 2.8 Z lens, that is $3,000. This is going to be the same thing, but on the opposite end in terms of reach. And it's going to probably sell in line with the current external zooming 70-200, which is more the still photography based focus lens. So I could see them, charging $3,000 for this one and still keeping the current one at $2,700.
Now, do you charge more for white or do you charge more for black?
Oh, that is a very good question. What do you think, Jared?
What do I think is I want the white one. I want the white one. White pound. David Duke, get out of here. I want the white. I just like the white look better than the black look. I just don't like the way that the black lens looks in my hands.
With Canon, the white look was always the professional lens. You know, when you had the professional telephoto lens, it was white with a red ring.
Yep. Their original 70-200 was black, and then they came out with the white version, and they've stuck with the white lens ever since. And so I get it, like, oh, you're on a production, you want to have a black lens so that it blends into the background. It's like, shut up.
I mean, the black lens is pretty badass, though, I will say.
Well, Steven, I hope it comes in white, and I get the white one.
Can't wait till it's just a black version, and it's a big, giant, long, black 70-200 2.8, and they keep the current external zooming white, small, chody one in the line, and it's just, big black versus small white. What do you think the primes are going to come in at? Same as the 35?
How much is the 35?
$1,500.
Oh, God.
But you got to keep in mind, Canon has the 51.2, which sells for $2,100 on sale right now.
I know the answer, Steven. The 51.4 will be cheaper than the 35.1.4, and the 24.1.4 will be more expensive than the 35.1.4. As you go wider, it gets more expensive.
Well, I've always said that I hope they do what Sony did, where they have the cheap 51.8, and then they have the 51.4 GM that sits at around $1,200-$1,300, and then you have your 1.2 at like $2,200-$2,300. You kind of have something for everybody. Hopefully, Canon does the same. I think if it's priced at $1,500 or north of $1,500, it's going to be too close to that 1.2.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be a
$1,200
lens, which is insane to say that a 51.4 is $1,200 when back in the day I would buy a Nikon 51.4D for like $399 or $429 or whatever the price was. Totally different world. But
and keep in mind, these are L lenses. These are their quote unquote professional lenses, but they're the hybrid line. The 35.1.4, I find myself falling in love with more and more lately. There's really zero focus breathing, and I think that's great for video work. Super small and light too, but I still want that 1.2 when it comes to still photography.
Well, for those that are prime curious, it's a good way to get into it. They have a lot of options. And the good news is we will know on October 30th, Mischief Day. Night. Mischief night. Did you go out for Mischief Night? You were probably a kid who went out for Mischief Night.
I mean, we did, but we didn't like vandalize anything or, throw toilet paper on people's trees and stuff like that, or egg houses.
What did you do?
I don't think we really did anything bad. I personally didn't. I might have had friends that did that, but
yeah, you did. I've met some of your friends.
Makes sense, right?
I never went out for Mischief Night. I just didn't. I didn't create mischief as a kid.
Yeah.
Just as an adult on YouTube. Some would say, love him or hate him.
Love him or hate him. Jared Polin.
Whatever. So Canon rumors also go to head. Canon rumors go to head and put up some R6 Mark III spec rumors. What do you think about these things, bad boy? I meant to, what do you think about these bad boy specs,
it sounded like
Steven?
It sounded like you were curious there. What?
Sorry, I'm now bi-curious. I'm a xenial. I'm curious about everything. I'm curious about being offended. I'm curious about what camera to use. I'm curious about whether I want a glizzy in my mouth. Like
what?
A glizzy in my mouth?
What's that?
A hot dog?
Oh,
I didn't know this term glizzy.
Is that a metaphor?
For a meat steak, meat tube, whatever the hell they call
meat
it.
Stick in your mouth?
Meat stick in your mouth. Come on, Steven. Why do you think Steven's funny? Listen to this guy. Ha 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 ha. All right, Steven, hit us with the specs.
So they're saying a 24 megapixel LC1720 sensor, which apparently is the model name for the R3 sensor, according to Canon rumors. So that would be pretty nuts if this was essentially a mini R3 in an R6 Mark III body, along with that R6 Mark III price, which I'm assuming is going to be that $2,500 price point. They're saying the Digic accelerator processor, that new one, it's going to have 8.5 stops of IS, the same focus system as the R5 Mark II, 14-bit 30 frames per second RAW with the electronic shutter, just like the R3, in-camera neural network noise reduction, high resolution magnification, just like the
That's
R5 Mark
stupid.
II and R1. Pointless, yeah. It supports the same codecs and Cinema 4K 120p and Super 35 and 6K oversampled Cinema 4K. And it supports 6K 30p, 4K 60, and Cinema RAW light recording. Essentially, this is going to be a mini R3, which is
With better
pretty
autofocus.
mind-blowing. With better autofocus, yeah.
If it uses the same sensor, that would be pretty incredible. It would be pretty incredible if it uses a similar sensor to the R3.
And have the updated Digic accelerator processor and the R5 Mark II autofocus with 14-bit RAW recording. It's a pretty stacked camera, literally.
And will it have pre-shooting? Like, it doesn't say pre-shooting, but I would assume that at this point it would.
I guarantee it will. Usually everything trickles down from the R5 series to the R6, just like the R5 and R6. It was the same focus between the two. Same everything for the most part, internally minus the resolution.
That would just be insane. That would just be insane to think that the R3 would, I mean, if you can get an R3 now for under $3,000, it's still an incredible, I mean, it's going to be an incredible body for years and years to come. If this camera comes in at $2,700, $2,800, like the same quality, now different
Brand new?
body, different batteries, but the new focus and everything, it's just like, holy shit, that will be insane. Because the R6 Mark II is still an amazing camera. That is one of the most well-rounded cameras for anything you want to throw at it. You can do it.
And keep in mind, the R6 Mark II is only not even 2 years old. It came out in November of 2022. So it's just about to hit its second birthday. And they're already talking about an R6 Mark III. I don't know why they're updating the R6 line so quickly. I'm not complaining, but I'm just very surprised because Canon takes usually 3 to 4 years.
So I think that this R6 Mark III is going to be, if these rumors are correct, this is going to be a stupid good camera.
The question is, do you buy a brand new R6 Mark III or do you buy a used R3?
I mean, if the only benefit of the new of getting a used R3 is the body and bigger battery, I mean, it's a beautiful body. You know, it's a beautiful body. So we'll have to wait and see. We haven't heard shit about this, but we have no idea if Canon wants to do a teaser or not do a teaser. Another camera, because that's the Canon news. Where did these rumors for a Sony A1 come from?
Out of nowhere. I mean, it was expected that the A1 was around the corner just because it's been almost 4 years. I think January will be 4 years. The A9 III just came out. It makes sense to finally update the A1 to the Mark II version.
Hit us with the specs, Steven.
Same 50 megapixel sensor as the A1, which makes sense because Sony has always waited 2 full cycles until they update the sensor. Like the A7R2 to the A7R3, the A9-1 to the A9-2, the A7S2 to the 3. They've always waited to update the sensor. So makes sense that it's going to be the same exact one as the original A1. It will have apparently the new AI chip, which we find in all the latest Sony full frame bodies. Improved frame rate, they're saying. So a little curious about that one because it was 30 frames per second compressed RAW with the A1, right?
Yeah.
So will they do 40 now? They're saying it's going to have the best in-class autofocus, SD and CF Express Type A 4.0 generation dual hybrid slots. This might be the first camera with CF Express 4.0. It'll be much faster than the current 2.0 generation. And they're saying the same body as the A1, but that doesn't make sense because once they introduce a new body like they did with the A9 III, every single alpha body, full frame moving forward, always inherits that body. So there's no way they're going to keep the same body, especially for a Mark II of a flagship body. That just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, so my whole thing with the A1, the original one, that it needed to change is better autofocus, which you see the A9 III got better autofocus. So I would assume that the A1 II would end up with the same chip for autofocus. And that means pre-shooting. And the things that it was missing was pre-shooting, better autofocus, and and the body. So I don't know how they would stay with the same body after 4 years, especially with an upgrade. That doesn't make sense to me either.
There's absolutely no way.
Yeah, I mean, will it shoot 40 frames? I mean, it kind of might make sense that they will be able to tweak it to go a little further than it went before. It would be interesting if it matched what an A9 III could do at 50 megapixels, but it's obviously not going to be a global shutter. There's no way in hell they'll do a 50 megapixel global shutter at this point.
What did the A1 have? Was it the Bion's XR processor?
I guess. Bion's XR?
I'm curious if they're going to finally update the processor, because I think the A9 III still had the same one as the A1.
Well, I'll go out on a limb here and say that if it does get the same focusing system, it says best in class focusing system. What class will that be? Because I'm sitting here with an R1 right now, and an R5 Mark II that I've used in the real world extensively has better autofocus than an A9 III. And so I can't see that an A1 II having different autofocus than an A1 III. I bet you it's going to be similar, if not the same, which is good. It's really good It's the best autofocus in a Sony camera ever. But I'm telling you right here, right meow, and this isn't like me guessing. I am telling you that the autofocus in the R5 Mark II and the R1 is better than what is in Sony's A9 III. I get it. Not everything's about autofocus, but I'm just telling you that the autofocus is better on Canon than it is on Sony. That's from real world usage.
Yeah, it looks like the A1 and the A9 III both had the Bion's XR processor, so maybe it's time to finally update that, and maybe that'll give it the bump in frame rate. Will it have a speed boost option if it does have that bump in frame rate that you can, say, shoot at 20 frames per second and then do the speed boost to like 40 or 60, kind of like the A9 III where you can be at 30 frames and then speed boost up to 120 whenever you want. Now, the other question is, what's the price going to be? Because we now have the A9 III sitting at $6,000. Will this be $6,500 just like the original A1, or will it now be $7,000? Or will it be $6,000 and you pick your poison? Do you want the high resolution, slower shooting camera with a stack sensor, or do you want the crazy 120 frames per second global shutter with a slight hit in dynamic range and image quality? Which one do you want to go with?
Lots of decisions. I think it's getting very complicated at the flagship end of the systems because not everybody. I just think they need to retire the flagship term. Flagship made sense way back in the day, but today there's so many great options. Like an R6 Mark III rumor would be better than an R3, or it could be pretty competent compared to an R1, right? Like, how many people need an R1? Me, I want an R1. In fact, I have one right here. David Duke, get your hands off my R1.
It does kind of remind me.
Do you know what's funny, Steven?
Oh
you know what?
God.
You know what's funny? Excuse me, let me interrupt. David Duke came here today. Do you know what David Duke drives?
Let me guess.
He's driving a Subaru. He just feels that they're economical. He feels that it speaks to him directly, and he feels it's the right car for him.
Makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I just had to say Subaru once in the episode because we haven't said it the entire episode, and I didn't want people to think that we've moved on.
The A9 III and the A1 II that's rumored right now kind of remind me what Canon and I think even Nikon used to do, where they would have that one smaller sensor, faster frame rate shooting flagship camera, and then the full frame, slower readout, slower frame rate camera, and they were both kind of the same price point. It's kind of like that now with Sony.
Yeah, Nikon used to do that with the D1
Yeah.
H was for speed somehow, and the D1X was the higher megapixel, then the D2H, and then the D2X. Then they did a D3 and a D3X, and that was it. They dropped the H.
It's funny because we kind of graduated from that era and started making jack of all trade type cameras where they weren't specific type of cameras just for sports, just for studio stuff, etc. The A1, the R3, the Z9, they're everything cameras. And now it almost seems like Sony is starting to split that lineup again and kind of do what Canon and Nikon used to do back in the day. Yeah, Canon had the 1.3 crop factor flagship camera. What was that? The 1D? I forget. The original 1D?
The 1DS was the high end. It was the 1D3, the 1D2, and the 1D. Those would have been the crop sensor 1.3 time crop factor cameras.
2002 is when that one came out. Wow. The original 1DS, 11 megapixel full frame camera.
Yo, dude. I remember the issues they had with those cameras at the beginning. They couldn't get sensors that didn't have like bumps on them or something. So they had to throw out so many of them because they just couldn't make the sensors properly. And so there was, yes, that's what it was. I remember that the left side might have been in focus, but by the time it got to the right side, there might have been a discrepancy in the level of the height of the sensor that it caused. There were some issues with it. I think I recall that back in the day.
Wow.
Technology, man, it's pretty insane.
Max ISO of 1250.
It was a studio camera. It was meant to be used with strobes.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to add here before we wrap this thing up?
No, that is it. I just, again, thought we were done for the year. These rumors, I don't know if this is all going to be the beginning of next year, end of this year. Obviously, these lenses are definitely coming. The Canon lenses, October 30th, that's a given. But R6 Mark III, A1 II, anything else? Who knows?
Just a flagship in my hands right now. Oh, I didn't check the serial
By the
number.
way, as I'm saying all this, Jared just keeps like flashing the R1 in the camera the entire time.
I think this is number 589.
Not number one?
No, not number one. But
Do they know who they gave that camera to?
I'm going to sit here and play with myself for a while with this camera. I mean, I'm going to play with this camera to set it up and get it set up, get the other battery charged up. And I think I'm going to go shoot some. There's field hockey to photograph. There's soccer, the Union play at 6:00 on Saturday. So I might just break the R1 out for those.
It is the exact same battery as the R3, right? And the same one as the 1DX Mark III and
1DX Mark II. Yeah, it goes all the way back to then.
They haven't
really need to
updated that
update
at
it
all, right?
They need to update it. Like they updated the LPE16, the LPE6N battery or whatever they did, S or whatever the new one is, because it has more power. They need more power. White power. David Duke, I told you to leave. Get in your Subaru and leave.
Speaking of power.
That guy sucks. I'm excited to use it, though. I'm excited to use it to see how it is. I know I've been harsh on it, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious if you'll like the R5 Mark II better or if you will go with the R1 as your camera of
so
choice.
you're camera curious?
I am very curious.
I know the answer to that question without hesitation, Stephen.
Are you going to say R1 because it's the body, it's the full frame body?
I'm going to go with R1. Do you want to know why, Stephen?
Because it's the best of the best.
Looks matter. Very few people have this camera or going to have this camera. And it's going to be the speed. I want the 40 frames per second over the 30. I want the better image quality. I know one's 45. This is 24. But still, the high ISO is just going to be clean. Like 4,000 is probably like 800 back in the day at this point. And so it's just going to be so clean. It's going to be so nice. And the autofocus is fantastic. So that's where I'll be. I'm going to be with R1.
I mean, it does have that bump in autofocus in terms of the cross-type autofocus sensors in the R1 versus the R5 Mark II. So you will actually get hopefully a benefit from focusing on horizontal lines.
We'll see what happens, Stephen. But that's it. Let's wrap this up.
Let's do it.
Episode 123. Keep an eye out for the Kickstarter coming in the next little while. I would really appreciate your support Sin for supporting that. Hopefully, I mean, if we hit a stretch goal of 100,000, it would be really awesome. That would definitely help. 2,000 books are not inexpensive. That's a big chunk of change I'm going to need to put up just to order the books. And the goal is to, I'd love to sell 1,000 books in the Kickstarter, if not more. 1,000 books would be great. And then I have all the other books to sell. And I think I will continue to sell these books into the future, unlike the political book.
Well, I'm just stoked because this is the book I've always wanted you to put out, your life's work essentially in a single book. So
actually, Stephen, it's 22 years of my music photography.
Book two.
Book two.
Terrible title. What?
Yeah, whatever, dude. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Simple man.
Baby, I'm a simple man.
Simple Jack.
Simple plan. All right. Thank you guys very much for listening. Jared, Polin, photo.com. See ya.
Bye.